Hey guys, this is Chris with the 1990 Pontiac Firebird. It's been a while since we got on here to talk about things and updates that I've done to the car since then. And this one's been one that I've been working on for a long time, trying to get everything together and gather all the parts together right. I wanted to do the disc brake conversion from the drum brakes on my 90 Pontiac Firebird. And so, as you can see, I have had it up on there for quite a while. Actually, I started this on New Year's Day. First chance I've had to actually have everything together, my life settled, and things, what I needed to be done. So, long story short, I bought this kit from Inline Tube. The kit, as you can see, is not what you see, okay? This is for basically the 71 to 80 Camaro and Firebird style rear ends, but this is also the setup for the Firebird and Camaro. Now, the parts here you see here are similar but not similar, and this is what made it so difficult for me and where I've been struggling for this whole time. And when I tell you that this instruction set is incredibly difficult, it's because it is. The information that they provide you here with is relatively the same as far as pulling out the axles and then being able to take them out, remove them as you need to, and then replace them. The problem is with this, with the instructions on here, in all these cases, none of these look like what came in the kit. And that's the problem, okay? I called numerous times for help and for support on this kit, which basically was not much of anything, to say the least. They have 3 videos on there, and most of which only provide for the 71 to 81 Camaros and so forth. And that videos from Inline Tube are on there, and that's the ones they sent me again. So this is the right kit, but they sent it with the modification for the 82 to 92 type of rear end, which is what I had. So let's take a walk over here and see what I had to come up with so you understand this. This is the final piece of the puzzle with everything on here. Finally, after a month of trying to play jigsaw puzzles and Jenga with this thing, taking it on and off, taking the axles in and out at least 10 times before I got it straight. The parts have to be almost custom made in many ways, in many shapes. And finally, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you what happened, or what I had to do in order to make this thing finally make sense of this. Was watching the video one more time from those guys to realize that what I did was put it together thinking the plates go together, when in reality they don't. On the other side, in which I purposely left off so you can see this and understand how different this whole system is versus what they sent. So when I pull this thing apart, this plate and this plate here appear to go together in like so, when in reality this plate mounts directly on that type of axle correctly, but it's this plate that created all the havoc and why I had to keep taking the axles in and out. And these are, by the way, I did put new axles in. This in itself was another nightmare by itself. And so you understand, if you do order the axles for your Firebird in particularly, these axles are the 4.5 by 5 bolt lug pattern, but the distance is what was a nightmare. The distance on these was a 30.5 type of distance, where in reality, when the ones they sent me first, which I got the Force 10, which one of the other people on here shows for the Camaro, thinking nothing about it, the spline was right, the axle was right, but the distance was wrong. They sent me a 31 3/4 distance, and that in itself created a huge nightmare. In and out, back out, not knowing that it wasn't the correct one because the instructions were so poor. I originally thought that those longer axles were needed because we were converting to the disc, and it wasn't. The same exact axles needed to be put back in. So I had to send back the 10 force type of axles and go with another company called National Drivetrain, is where I got these axles from. Another nightmare. In the post that they show the lug studs are shown as being in the axles. They're not. These axles come out, and you have to find somebody to press them in yourself. These here alone, to get both sides done, I had to bring them to a machine shop, and it cost me another $150 just to have the studs put in, because I do not have the equipment to do that kind of press. Now, once I got that in, there was a second problem. And I'm going to show you on here because it's a little easier to explain. The length of the old axles, as you can see, like I say, and let me get my tape just so you can see this. From here, sorry. From here to here, it's hard to do this in this box, I'm sorry. It's 30 1/4, okay? 30 inches basically is the size of them. The problem was, again, was not that these were that much of a difference. The problem came with the axles themselves, and here it is, 31 3/4, 5 lug. That's what you need right there. That's the one, the MG 1020 axle. But again, what you can't see is that when I put these in, the actual pin that has to be put between the two would not fit again. And so I literally had to take the shafts out one more time, and I had to grind down this axle shaft almost a 1/16 of an inch on both sides before the shaft in between it, which holds this pin in here, would fit between them again. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Got that in several times. I ordered a new cover from Summit. As you can see, only Summit's instructions with this are also not clear. These here, these studs right here, this one and this one, as you can see, are for, and what I'm told, and it does not show on their website either, but those studs are for the emergency brake, the parking brake. Somehow or other, that parking brake right there is what is supposed to be strapped to those at some point with whatever kit that goes along with. 10 bolt standard, 10 bolt standard cover, and you need these two. This is the drain plug, that's your filler plug. Those did come with it, okay? But those right there did not make sense. And so my first instinct was to put them in reverse, because I thought it went in flush. Luckily, unlike Inline Tube with their customer service and support, I called them up and they were spot on. They they were helpful, and they told me, and they gave me explicit instructions that those had to be facing out. That is what those are for, and they were very helpful. So, I'm not putting inline down. I'm just telling you the instructions, and I told them about this on the phone, so this is nothing new. Their instructions are poor, and that they should be modified for the 82 to 92 model, especially when it is correct, but it's very difficult to understand. So let's go back through. So again, what I did the first time was I took this plate, and they were together, okay? And in the front. And why I had to keep taking this apart was I could not figure out how the actual caliper went on here, because it ended up still jamming against here. The other thing that was very hard to understand also was the bolt here. Initially, the bolt looked like it was too close, so as you can see, I ground it down. I actually ground off almost 1/8 of an inch because it was looking like it was scraping against the rotor, and basically when I bolted this up to it, it stopped it from moving. Now it's not like that. Lastly, and Inline does not have any explanation for this at all, which again makes it very difficult to manage, was why the parking brake cable has a spring and another spring with inside it in order for it to be bolted on. The only reason I figured out that this secondary plate here goes behind this was by coincidence that I happened to watch the video again and saw the other plate that he mounted behind the axle, behind the differential housing. That's the only reason I noticed that needed to go behind it, and that made all the difference. That also explained why these spacers right here, one there and one behind it, separated them. Again, I had no idea. Something didn't make sense because the bolt was too long, and I didn't understand why initially until after I happened to spot that, and I figured out that the reality is the front plate goes on the axle housing, and this one goes behind it, and in reality the bolt did not need to be cut. It needed to be moved back, and that gave me the actual almost 1/2 inch difference in space that I needed for the caliper to sit on there and ride correctly. And now you can see those additional spacers, which I thought went to the caliper also, actually are the spacers that go in between here. And now it makes sense why that bolt was as long as it was. So this has been a nightmare. It's finally coming together. I'm finally going to have this thing together. But the last thing I have to do, and which I want to show you also, which is in the instructions, but you have to go find these parts, is the master cylinder. And you can see that spacer, as it shows in here, is the same spacer that they give you. These two are the same as this that goes in your caliper, but they give you an extra two, and nothing in here will tell you anything about that. It just talks about, it just gives you the parts. Last thing you also have to know is, which I can't do, I'm gonna have to have here's the residual parts. Obviously the brake lines that did get included in mine, but because I'd had such a delay, I actually threw mine out without knowing they were in the box. But these here have to be welded on that axle shaft, which I'm gonna have to have done at a shop. I can't do that. I don't have the ability or a welding piece here. The rotor, the calipers are straightforward. But one last thing I want to show you that I did was these. They come with this little locking ring that goes on here. This locking ring comes on there, and it goes on here like so, and it holds this one on here. The problem is that when I was fiddling around trying to figure out how this thing went together, I could not get these things to stay together. And one thing I've always done is use my my brake line quiet, brake quiet it's called. And that's what the blue color is. That made a huge difference in keeping them in place. It gives it a little tacky surface to stick to on both there and there, and you don't have them fiddling around and coming off and so forth. But just know, when you're dealing with this caliper, there's your brake line. This here in itself, you have to put the parking brake line through here, and in many cases this spring will come off, and then you're going to fight with it as well as trying to get the parking brake locked into here. Okay, and I just happened to figure out how to do it, and basically all I did was I ran it through there. But don't make the mistake of what I made also. Do not lock that in place. Do not pull it all the way through, okay? But I grabbed a pair of pliers and I literally just left that behind there like so, and I pulled the shit out of it in order to get it into that little notch where it actually would fit. And again, it still was not an easy task to do. Once I had that in there, then push this grommet into that where it actually will fit in there and lock into place. So, one more little detail. The brake lines. Oh my God. The brake lines that they send you with the kit are not to scale, are not, lined up like anything you would imagine. I had to bend and prod and figure it out based on the locking stuff that was already in there, which you can see right there, and kind of make it custom fit to my own. If I have to do over again, I will take it to a brake shop and let them make me some stainless steel brake lines, brand new. And with it, just know one other thing. Get underneath here so you can see this. Where it connects into that little housing right there is also, because you have to custom fit that, I almost monkeyed up the threads on it where I had to completely take it off. As you can see, it's completely disassembled here. And then I had to re-straighten out the threads mildly and was able to get it to go into place. So, I'm glad this is done. I'm glad I'm going to finish it up and actually have it going. But I just wanted you guys to know that the one you guys see from the Camaro shops and everywhere else is not the same. In no way, shape, and form is this system anywhere like the ones he shows where you have to drill it out, put a different system on, so on and so forth. Okay, one last thing also. The caliper itself, if you look online, there are varieties of opinions out there, and that's where I'm going to leave it as an opinion. But these here, I was curious to know, should it go in the front or go in the back? And again, I couldn't get, I had various information that was set on there. So, thank God when I figured it out that I did figure that the caliper went towards the back of the vehicle, not the front. So, that's it. Know you're dealing with a huge job by doing this. It can be simpler now that you have the information you need to do this and understand that there's a process you have to go through. If you don't need to replace your axles, which I probably didn't, I just do things like that. I'm proactive about things. As long as I have it apart, why not replace